What's going on, guys? It's Mark from coachestrainingroom.com. I think we're live. I've been put in charge of this today. Eric couldn't join us today, sadly, but he just sent his best. So thank you if you are joining us live. I just need to make sure that we are actually set up and live, because this has been trusted to me, and that's the first thing that's going to fall over is the technology if I'm left in charge. So let's just check we're actually live. Looks like it, yeah. So thank you if you are joining us. It's just me today. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, just myself. So thank you for joining us. My name's Mark, as I've introduced myself before. If you are joining us for the first time, I'm the co-founder of Coaches Training Room with Eric. And my personal journey, I'm from the south of Manchester, from a town called Macclesfield. And my coaching journey started about 10 years ago, which took me across to the States and again coaching in England. And some 8 years ago, Eric and I decided to put our minds together and create Coaches Training Room, which is essentially born out of the idea that I was exposed to a lot of different coaches from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different coaching levels, abilities. Even some of the grassroots coaches who were newly qualified had some really excellent ideas, and I learned a lot from that as well. So for myself and for Eric as well, it was about exposing other people to different ideas, different methodologies, and not saying that our way is correct, not saying that our way is always right, but the fact that we can learn from others and take those ideas and apply it to your own coaching methods and grow as a coach. So we create a lot of session plans. We design them so that they are easy to digest. Part of it is that you, as we all know as coaches, it's sometimes you could have an idea in your head, but you're not actually sure how that's going to work in practice, and it can be quite a daunting task. So we try and make it as simple as possible for you to create those sessions. So again, obviously it's just myself today, so apologies if this doesn't go quite to plan, because Eric is the man when it comes to technology and that sort of stuff. So again, apologies if it's not quite as polished, but Eric's the man for that. So it was going to be a little bit short. I realise I'm on a little bit late because again, I can't work the technology. So I'm just going to talk briefly about when the time comes to restart the season and our expectations, what we can expect when we actually get back to the field. So it looks like globally, fingers crossed anyway, we might be starting to turn the tide a little bit, which means that we can start to ease restrictions. And whilst soccer is not necessarily high on government lists, it is going to become a topic very, very soon. So what can we expect as coaches and for our players when we actually get back down to the action now? My guess, and I think this is, I think most coaches will agree here, the first things that are really, really going to stand out for us is there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm from the players to get back to it and to start again. But the things that are going to stand out to me ultimately are going to be speed of decision making and perhaps a regression in first touch technique, quality of first touch. So from the technical standpoint, there's going to be a couple of things to look at here, but there's technically it would be poor control or a lessened ability to control, and that's just because of the speed of the game. We're not actually fully used to it again. That's something that we can iron out pretty quickly, but there are ways just to speed up that process as well. Physically, I think we're all in agreement. The physical conditioning for ourselves during this lockdown, maybe I'm speaking from personal experience here, but I started off really, really enthusiastic about exercise, keeping up with everything, and slowly but surely it has seeded. So Players, that's going to be a similar thing for them if they've been spending a lot of time indoors, not as much time playing sports with their friends, their peers. There is going to be a fall off in the physical conditioning. And finally, the mental aspect, it's going to be slower in terms of the decision making, so making the right choices on the field or taking that extra touch and just not being quite up to game speed. So I'm going to keep it really, really short today. I'm just going to give you a couple of perhaps ideas to tie these in together. So the technical, I would say that we're going to have to start with, before we get to the technical part, we're going to have to address the mental aspect, that decision making, and how we can perhaps just speed that up, get that nice and sharp. Because if we can make the decisions, then we're able to get the ball away that little bit quicker and speed the game up, and that will tie in nicely with the technical side of things. So mental preparedness for the decision making side of things. Excuse me, I'm just gonna. Before I start coughing. So from the mental aspect, I think it's good just to get the players playing as quick as they possibly can, and get them into situations where they're having to make small, little, quick decisions, but not in an overwhelming situation. So if you throw players into a game straight away, chances are it's all going to fall over because they're focusing too much on perhaps the just getting the ball under control, and that's taken away from perhaps a little bit of what they're thinking about, what they we're just going to rush into decisions and ultimately lose possession of the ball. So get them into something that they can solve quite quickly. You might want to start with ball in hand, perhaps, just to get those synapses going. So if we're ball in hand, hand-eye coordination, perhaps a little bit more reliable than the feet, perhaps. So start with ball in hand, start with some really, really simple ideas, just getting the players moving, solving problems, and just working, moving about the field, and trying to solve those problems as quick as they possibly can. If we can get to a point where we start to realise this is how it works, because it's the same as anything. If I don't drive for a few weeks, suddenly getting back behind the wheel, everything seems to be happening so fast around me, and there will be other things that people can actually relate to yourselves, where you've taken a little bit of time away from something, and you've come back to it, and everything seems to happen at 100 miles an hour, or everything seems to happen all at once. And it is just slowing those steps down, understanding that you do have a little bit of time, but you do need to. It suddenly, when you're able to make the right decisions at the right time, you seem to just everything happens in a bit more slow motion. So start with some games that are just going to problem solve, but without really focusing too much on the technical aspects of what we're doing. So as we move into the technique side of things, we're going to want to make sure that we're giving players plenty of touches in an unopposed or passive opposition situation. So give them the opportunity to get the ball under control. One nice idea might be just to limit the number of touches that we're giving the players, because if you give them a situation where you've got 3-on-3, that is real pressure situation, and whilst players could usually handle that or grow into that during a normal session, we're appreciating now that we've taken some break from it. And even if we have been keeping up with the stuff that we're doing at home, there is nothing quite like the replication of a real game situation to make sure that we're testing those things that we've learned in the right situation. But if you're just throwing players in cold into that situation, then we're really going to slow down that progression back up to the match speed that we're looking for. So lots and lots of touches in low opposition or even unopposed situations are going to just give you that encouragement to get the just to repeat the things that you've already learned, because again, you're not reteaching motor skills here, you're just remembering the things that you were doing and just shaking off some of that rust that comes with not doing something for a period of time. It would be the same for a musical instrument, anything like that. The first 20 minutes of getting back into it can seem a little alien, but you will get back to that level, and it's just about making sure that we're getting lots of touches. Because if we're throwing our players into a situation where there's maybe 6, 7, 8 players and one soccer ball, then you're talking about a limited amount of touches per player. So we really want to be in situations where we're in small groups, we're maximising the amount of touches that we're getting, quality touches in low opposition situations, so that we can start to build that up and start to increase that pressure as we go. And lastly, the physical aspects of everything is going to come naturally. I wouldn't stress any over-the-top fitness work without a ball, or even with a ball. You know, we're not talking about drilling the players too hard. The fitness is going to come from just kicking that ball around the field again. So there is a situation where as we start to build up to actual matches again, you know, there's going to be a break. I'm sure it's a finger in the air moment. We don't exactly know how it's going to look when it does, but I imagine most leagues with some sense will allow a small pre-season to take place before we go back in, because you're looking at avoiding injuries. You want players to be back up to a base level of training and also a base level of fitness, so that we're not jeopardising long term in terms of fitness and well-being. So there's going to be a period of time where we can slowly start to incorporate the ball, but then ramp up the fitness as we get closer to the season recommencing, so that we've got that. So again, I wouldn't necessarily stress physical sessions without the ball. I would keep the ball included as much as possible, and just allowing the game to be that physical conditioning. The mental and technical aspects are the huge importance. I'm sorry if I'm going off a little bit here. Apologies, Melissa. I can see you've put a question. I'm just trying to see if I can see it. So I think if I'm right, Melissa, I'm sorry, I'm looking on my phone here as I'm doing it. So you've got, what do you rank the priority for getting back into the game? Technical conditioning strategy. I think it finishes at strategy, Melissa. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't see the rest of the sentence. I think it finishes at strategy. I'll work from there. So for me, personally, if I was going to rank those in terms of priority, technique, absolutely number one. Because if you have if your first touch is good, that means you're going to be making yourself a great player will be able to make the ball do the work a lot of the time. And I know that sounds like a cheesy analogy, but ultimately, if you can be in the right place at the right time, you can see, there's some players who rely heavily on. Thanks, Melissa. I can just see a message there. So you just finished up that, yeah. So players. Some players rely heavily on how fast they can run and how they can be there at the right time. Now, a great player with a good technique will make anyone look like a Labrador. You know, you're just chasing the ball all over the field. So, absolute priority number one would be getting the technical side of things refined again. The conditioning will come slowly but surely. And the strategy, strategy is something that you'd have to introduce over a period of time. If you've reassessed your own strategy individually, then obviously feel free to drip feed that, but absolutely just get players kicking a ball, refining that technique. The conditioning will happen naturally. If it's not happening at a rate that you want to see, then I might start looking at, especially as you get closer to the game time, I would start trying to schedule some extra games in there, sending some players off with some things that they're able to do. And try and weave the strategy in through that, so not to overwhelm. A lot of the times with strategic stuff, it's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of pulling somebody to one side and just correcting finer parts, and just making sure that you're lacing your strategy through. As long as the players understand it as a wider umbrella and their individual roles within that strategy, just keep reinforcing with that. And I can see another question coming here. Sorry, I'm having to do two things at once here. Read and breathe, so just bear with me. Okay, Kevin, yeah, I've just got your question there. Okay, that's interesting to hear. I'd love to know where you're based actually. So, because I imagine there's going to be similar sort of restrictions in place. Well, that's interesting what Kevin said. If anybody can't read the question, it says here where Kevin is based, the players will be playing in boxes 10 by 10 and only playing ball with themselves during training. Matches are a long time away from or normal training. So he's just asked if there's anything on the website which can add in individual practice sessions given this restriction. So yeah, that's Northern California. Okay, that's I was based around there for I was over in Walnut Creek for a good while. Moved around sort of Hayward area, but mostly East Bay, San Francisco. So I wonder if the restrictions will be similar there. Yeah, we do have some stuff on the website, Kevin. If we want to get into the question more in the comments afterwards, I will. But we do have on coachestrainingroom.com/skills. We have a lot of individual-based player sessions that Eric and I have put together for this particular time, but also, Mustang in Danville, right, so I was right up the road from you. Excellent. I do know the club. Yeah, great to hear from you, Kevin. So, just lost my train of thought completely. So the coachestrainingroom.com/skills, SKILLS. Eric and I have put together a project that we were working on anyway because we were looking at ways to keep players engaged between sessions because ultimately as a coach you only have a limited time during the sessions to actually get everything done, and if players can be putting some of the foundational work in place for you already in a way that's engaging, in a way that is fun for them, inspiring them to do a little bit more, then that helps you for your sessions. Obviously it's great for this time because it's all individual skills based stuff, so it is repetition of proper touches. It's also Eric's got some videos in there for some like achievable tricks with the ball, just the fun stuff that you're not necessarily going to use in a game, but the things that for me when I was young, it was the stuff I wanted to practice. It was the things that I wanted to do or be able to do. So that's what I would be outside practicing for hours for. So there's some of that stuff in there, but then there's some things that for any coach or even any parent can go ahead and buy. I think it's just $9, which is heavily reduced. But yeah, plenty of individual skills stuff, which doesn't need a coach to be there. It's just a case of learning the patterns and repeating those touches in that situation. So I guess we'll wrap it up. I'm sorry again for anyone if this is a little bit bitty, but it's just myself doing it, and like I said at the start, I'm not the technical guy here. I rely heavily on Eric for that sort of stuff. So thank you for joining us. If you've got any more questions, I will bob that in the comments actually, Kevin, so you can just get straight to the website. We do have some stuff there. And thank you anyone for on. Thank you for coming on live. Thank you for your questions. It has flowed a little bit differently, but I really do appreciate your support, your questions, and stay safe. And we will both be back next week. So speak to you then. Bye bye.